Welcome back, Action Researchers. We're going to take a few minutes to screencast some of the objectives for week 5. One of the things you'll note at the top of our Moodle session is to make sure you're checking your Baker email this week throughout the week, because this week's going to be a little bit lighter on the drafting, so you get a little bit of relief from where we've been. We pushed pretty hard the last 2 weeks of the course as you wrote your introduction, your research-based support for change, and now you've just completed developing your data collection plan. So really those 3 components of the project were the rough spot to get through. We just needed to kind of push through those pieces to get to the point in time where we're ready to start implementing our actual interventions and action research. So hopefully, based on the feedback that you receive from your week 4 submissions of the data collection plan and the template that you hopefully completed and turned in prior to the draft, this week you're going to participate in a little bit of a peer review with a research partner. Now, I had asked you to share topic information with me a couple of weeks ago so I could start looking at commonalities between some of the researchers so I could put you in a meaningful team with someone else in the class that you can have a collegial and collaborative relationship with, as you are now to the point that you've got a nice solid draft of your project that you can start sharing with someone else. Now, we're still working on the draft, so we still have some polishing to do, and so I'm going to keep a growth mindset out there for you, and we're not yet fully developed. So with this week, please know that you're going to participate with a partner and complete a peer review process. So it should be a great activity and opportunity to get a sense of another student in the class, another colleague's project and what direction they're going, but also to share some information with each other, support each other, and maybe some other, just having another set of eyes on a project to check for clarity. One of the things that you may be doing is looking for making sure that there's clarity in what's written. So as a peer is describing their intervention plan, describing the problem they're trying to solve, or maybe putting out some of the directions they're going to take with their research, ask yourself whether or not you truly understand it. Is it clear enough? Because in some cases, I'll use an example of I've had students in the past that have implemented a technology solution or maybe an app, and it's so app specific and it's close to them because they know what it is that it'll do and they know what it is that it will hopefully do to benefit their students, but to the layperson it may not be clear, so it needs additional detail. So those are the types of things that I'm going to ask you to look for this week. So you'll note in Moodle that some of the key components that are bulleted is continue to build and polish the sections that we've already drafted. You'll continue to get feedback from me. Some of you had not yet finished the research section, so I'll be looking at that with the week 4 submissions that I'll turn back to you and just making sure that you've got all of the pieces that you need to really present a professional research-based support for change that's based on evidence, existing research and studies, not blogs or things that you find on the internet that aren't professional publications. So I know that there are a few that we're still working to get that component shored up. So you'll have additional feedback from me, but this is giving you some time in the class to, number one, kind of do some more polishing on the writing, but also hopefully you're poised that you're ready to start making some actual changes in your class instruction and starting to collect the data. I also will have a discussion forum post for you to participate in, and it's really for reflection. I want you to reflect on the project and the progress that you've made so far, even in your thinking about your own instruction and what you really wanted to focus on in terms of bringing about change for your learners. I want you to post this week about any hurdles or any additional questions that have come up as you've gotten into the work. Other ideas that you might be contemplating and that you'd like to gain additional feedback on, or that you'd like to know. Maybe as you've gotten started in this project, it's kind of opened up your eyes and you're starting to ask more questions about your professional practices. So what else is on your mind? I'd also like you to reflect on how you're engaging others in your school. One of the action research jigsaw activities that we participated in talked about action research as a professional practice. It's really a form of professional development, and it shouldn't be done alone. It should be done in a place where you can engage others in your thinking, in designing solutions, and bringing about change and reflecting on the progress. So hopefully that's happening in your school setting, but I really want this week to be about you reaching out, working with others, and also reflecting on your progress. The third bullet that you'll see in Moodle talks about implementing your classroom school or school-based interventions. So it's time to bring about the change that we've been thinking about, we've been writing about. So this week, it should be the starting point for your research. Begin collecting data. You will have time this week and also through week 6. So you basically have a 2-week window of time. Now, we've talked about our school calendars, and depending on where we are in the course, we may have conference dates coming up. Those that are in spring 2 might have a spring break that's hitting in the midst of all of the fun. So just take a breath and know that we can't control school calendars. We do the best that we can. And if you don't have a large enough window for collecting data, that's okay, because we'll just write about that when we get to our discussion of our results and reflections for what we would want to do differently in the future. So again, that's kind of the making lemonade out of lemons. But remember, we talked about in the first week, we don't focus on what we can't control. We're only focusing on what we can control and what we can impact in terms of our change. So don't sweat it. That's small stuff. Let the small stuff go. So again, what we began talking about, you're going to share your project work with your research partner, and I will have the partners posted in the Moodle screen. So for the week 5, you'll see who you're partnered with. You can find your contacts through Moodle. You can also find them through the Baker Outlook system. If you need any help just connecting with your partner, just a simple, hey, I can't locate the email address, or it's not coming back, or they're not responding, just let me know and I will help to facilitate those connections. But you should be able to reach out to class participants through our Moodle class group. So just let me know if you need help with that. And then also, as a reminder, I'd like for you to take a look at Mertler Chapter 6. That will work you ahead for where we're going to be in another week as we start to look at the analysis of the data after we've collected it. So again, it's just stair-stepping you a little bit ahead into the future. So this week, the assignments are a little bit light by design because I want you focused on doing the work in the classroom, implementing your intervention, and focusing on your students. So research begins this week. Okay. One of the things that I want to point out as you get into Chapter 6 in Mertler is the chapter is about analyzing data. So this last week in week 4, you wrote your data collection plan. The next section of the project will be the analysis of data. And I will give you more information in week 6 in the screencast for the details, but the short of it is when you get into this next section, you're just going to give the facts. This is not your interpretation. This is purely where you're going to report the data that you have collected without your thoughts about what it means. We get into what it means when we get into the discussion of results. But one of the things that I want to prep you for is Mertler is extremely thorough and it's a great text resource. But think back to where we started the course and we talked about the difference between traditional research and action research. You're going to read quite a bit in Mertler about the different types of analysis of data. You're going to see information about different statistical methods for analyzing data. So if we were doing more traditional research, we would be using statistical analysis packages like SPSS or others that are out there. For the timeline of this class, we won't be getting into that. So one of the things that I'll just draw your attention to is page 179 in the text, measures of central tendency. That's the most common statistical analysis that I see in our action research and the most applicable. So as you start collecting data, it's okay and it's perfectly fine to, and I would expect you to report the mean, the mode, the median of the data sets as you collect them, depending on the data you're reporting. Okay, so everybody's a little unique. If you're conducting student interviews as one of your data collection tools, then you're probably not going to have a mean or a mode or median for that data because it's more qualitative in terms of what type of results you'll share based on student interviews. So again, each person will be a little unique in the types of data they'll collect based on the measures that they're utilizing. The other piece that I want to draw your attention to that I think is an awesome benefit to Mertler is how he gets into the detail and provides great examples of graphical representations of data. So you'll see some examples of histograms and bar charts and pie charts. And I just want to draw your attention to how those are laid out in the text, and I'll provide another resource for you from the Purdue online writing lab on the final project and what that will look like. But just note, like on pages 184 and 185 in the text, how Mertler has laid out sample visual representations of data. He has labeled them. All of this is in line with APA formatting, so figures, they're not graphs, they're figures, so that's an APA designation. They're numerated, so you always have a number that you can refer to and draw the reader to the connection point and the text as you're writing about the data, and then draw them to the visual of the data. It makes it very clean, and it gives them something to grasp onto if they can have that visual representation. And then there's always a title for it. So on page 184, you'll see a sample histogram for the same data appearing in table 6.2. That's the title. It's figure 6.5, so it's got the figure numerical designation and it's got a title, and then you'll see everything appropriately labeled in terms of the graphics and the axes, and then the tick marks for each of those figures. So that's important, and that's a frequently cited, as I get into the draft, piece of feedback that I will give you, because when we're in APA previous classes, you've probably had the opportunity to practice implementing APA in the writing and receive feedback on it, but maybe not so much with visual representations of data. So those figures are important, and they are helpful in how Mertler has provided examples of how to use them. So again, key takeaway for Mertler Chapter 6, a lot of information, a lot more than what we will get into, but it also gives you a good breadth of understanding because this is your formal research class for your master's program. If we were doing more traditional research, you would have to go into more detail with your statistical analysis than what we'll do for action research. So again, it's just background knowledge for you so that you get that complete picture of what researchers work with in terms of data. All right, so let's look a little bit further ahead into the Writer's Workshop activity. I've given you some information about what you're going to do this week. I provided a template. Actually, there's a Word document and also a PDF. And I'm going to pull up an example of that PDF real quick to take a look at. So it doesn't matter to me which document you use. I've just put it out for you in 2 different formats, so whatever works best for you. If you have trouble opening the document or we're working with it because of different types of computers and programs you're running, just let me know. That's not a big deal. But what I want you to do is, with your partner, exchange your projects. I want you to come into the template, and this is how you're going to give feedback to your partner. So all I want you to do this week is complete the template, give that feedback to your partner based on the research that they've done, and then I want you to turn in the template you complete into the Moodle area. Okay, so just go ahead and post that into Moodle, and that's how I'll assign the completion, the participation for this week. So the template's pretty simple. It's just meant to kind of support peer project review. So I've given you some kind of key pieces up here. You're going to go through and basically fill in the blank. Is there a title for the research project? At the point that I was reviewing drafts the first couple of weeks, not everybody had titled the work, and that's okay. I don't really get into that. I don't sweat it. But at this point, if there isn't a title yet, we need to be thinking about that. Does the title clearly and accurately tell the reader what the research is about? Yes or no? Abstract. Don't worry about the abstract. Leave that blank because most people have not and should not have written that yet, but it is a part of the project, so I've left it in there. It's for later. Don't worry about scoring the abstract. Leave that blank. Introduction. Does the introduction of the project provide the statement of the problem and the research question the study seeks to answer? Can you find it? If you can't find the identified research problem clearly stated in the introduction and you can't fill in the blank, then that's feedback that that partner needs to know. Does it describe in detail what kind of problem is to be studied, who is affected, who or what is suspected of causing the problem? Now those are some key pieces that, as we've written the drafts and they were rough, that may have been missing. We may have identified who is affected, but we may not have done the best about really clearing why we think this is a problem and what's at the heart of it and how our intervention is going to help support change. Do we have a concrete attainable goal? Do you know or understand what it is that your research partner is trying to achieve? And a rationale for change should be given. What is the research question? So comments for introduction improvement. So I've given you some kind of key statements in the direction. Have you thought about? You might want to clarify. Those might be some helpful sentence starters for support. Again, growth mindset, we're all able to improve, so really kind of do your best. Don't just rubber stamp everything. I know that's easy and I see that, but I'm hoping that you can provide some great feedback for a partner. Same goes for research-based support for change. Number of citations found in the text, 7 should be evident. If you go a bit above that, great, but there should be 7 there. Do the citations follow proper APA style? Do they include the author, the date, and the page whenever possible? Data collection plan, so that should be there. So key pieces here. Are there 3 sources of data for triangulation? The 3 sources you ought to be able to identify and pull out. Even though it may seem redundant, the participants should be named as to who is involved in the study. You as the reader should clearly understand what was done, how it was done, and when it was done, and then provide some of the feedback. And as we're going through this, I just saw that should be APA format, so please disregard the heading. I'll have to fix that in future versions of the document. So that is the peer review. Again, you're going to complete this for a partner, trade your papers, complete the template, send it back to the partner, and then the template that you have completed and provided to that partner is what you're going to submit into the Moodle discussion or activity area for this week. So if you have any questions about any of the work, you have any questions about your progress on the project, please reach out to me this week, and I'm happy to answer questions as always. Just remember, we also have office hours on Tuesdays, 8 o'clock. If anybody's needing to jump on the online chat, we can do that. That's not a problem, so I'll be there. I usually stay for about 10-15 minutes, and if nobody comes, then I kick back off. The last thing I'm going to leave you with is I posted a video this week that comes from a group called IDEO. And one of the things that I've shared in the data collection is you start to think about how you collect data and what type of tools. I've always been a big proponent of including students in the data collection. I love it, and I think it's valuable when you start asking your students for feedback on how they're doing, how they're learning, what differences they see in the classroom when you're bringing about a change. And one of the things that's grown in terms of a movement over the last year in education is coming out of the innovation community, the entrepreneur groups that are kind of storming our country right now. And that is design thinking, or you might hear it as human-centered design. So I've included a short video of a teacher because design thinking is starting to kind of breach education. And I see a lot of connections. Maybe I'm crazy, but I see a lot of connections to how we approach action research, particularly in the video that you're going to see this week. It's just for kind of an enrichment piece for you. It's an enjoyable short video, but you're going to hear from an educator and how they are including students and thinking about students at the heart of how they're designing educational opportunities and maybe even change processes for schools. But I see a lot of connections to what we're attempting in action research for each of our classrooms, so hopefully that's something that you'll enjoy. And again, as you think about data collection, it's always a good idea, no matter how little or how young your learners are, to include them in the process in gathering feedback on how they learn and what they're learning and what they see as opportunities for improvement. So you guys are doing a fabulous job. I've enjoyed the work so far. Hopefully you have too. So light week, again, focusing on you. Good luck with your data collection. Good luck for getting started with your intervention, and I look forward to seeing the fruits of your labor. Have a great week.